Live, ICCA headquarters here in Amsterdam. Welcome to the ICCA Plenary Session 2020, a very special one. I'm going to say good morning to all the members in the Americas, good afternoon to all the members in Africa, the Middle East and Europe, and good afternoon, good night to all our members in Asia and Australia. Glad you're with us today. It's the week of IMEX, and normally at IMEX we all come together to talk about our association, to have a members update from our president, from our CEO, and of course to launch the ICCA rankings for the year before, in this case 2019. Well, we live in very special times at the moment where we're all based at our homes, where nobody's here in the office here today, and obviously, sadly, we are not in Frankfurt at the moment enjoying IMEX. However, we are coming together as good as we can through this virtual platform, and I'm very happy. We all here at ICCA are very happy that you're joining us, and let's see if we can get some sense of togetherness. So there's a little first assignment. If you just joined in and you haven't done so, we mainly interact through the two features here in the Zoom webinar. It's the chat, and I see many of you are already using that, and I invite you all to let us know if you haven't used that chat function, to tell us who you are, where you are joining us from, and then please, like with the video you just saw, which almost seemed like a thing from the past, tell us in one word, why do you miss face-to-face? What is that one thing that you miss the most? For the next hour, we're going to have a virtual ICCA plenary. You will hear an update from the ICCA president, James Rees, in any moment now. After that, we will be joined by Senthil Gopinath. You are all with us on the stage already. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Glad you're with us. And then in the last half hour, we will be joined by Dr Albis Francesco Gabrielli from the World Health Organization. He's within the unit that's all about mass gatherings, and he will give us an update on how they think at the moment about the status of mass gatherings, the outlook, an update on potential protocols, and you will have the opportunity to send in all the questions that you have for Dr. Gabrielli. Of course, we have about 15 minutes for Q&A, so we cannot probably take all your questions. So that's why in the Zoom webinars, as you might have come used to with ICCA webinars, you can also like and promote questions from others that you really want me to take and address to the doctors. So make sure of that feature as well. With that, it's time to start. I'm going to turn to the screen. I'm going to hand over to our ICCA president, James Rees, based in London at the moment. James, could you please give us an update on the recovery and resilience of this very special association?
Well, thank you, Gerrit, and hello to everybody out there across the ICCA globe. And dear ICCA colleagues and friends, first of all, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for attending our first ever virtual plenary meeting, and hope that you, your families, friends and colleagues are safe and secure during these unprecedented times for all of us in the ICCA family. Thank you for the incredible number of you who have made the time to join the meeting today during what would have been a very busy week for us at IMEX in Frankfurt, but where we now come together to consider the pathway for our industry and help drive the dialogue to share our knowledge and experience so that we can play our unique part in the global recovery that will follow this pandemic. I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize Ray, Karina, and the whole IMEX team for their efforts and leadership in launching PlanetIMEX, a wonderful innovation that is helping us this week to connect with each other and maintain digitally the continuity in our businesses. We are all coming to terms with and learning to adapt to our new digital lifestyles and striving to maintain a semblance of normality. But the desire to see and hear from colleagues, friends, and loved ones becomes even more powerful when we are forced to be apart. As this situation has developed, I've been really fortunate to have had the pleasure of speaking with countless ICCA members across the globe, and throughout these discussions, there has been one consistent message. We are missing the camaraderie, the interaction, the face-to-face contact that we take for granted. And it reminds us that physical presence, the sense of belonging, and the building of trusted relationships by meeting in person is irreplaceable. But while we're reminded of the power of our industry, ICCA recognises its responsibility to its members to provide a global knowledge hub and share every possible best practice from our sectors and regions. And so this has driven the huge increase in educational content via digital channels and an extensive series of webinars, which I know have been extremely well received. And our diverse membership has really appreciated this nimble approach in adapting to the sudden changes in our industry. Throughout 2020, the ICCA board has been working to support our CEO, Senthil Gopinath, and his teams across our global offices to help navigate this new pathway and to give insight to ICCA's activities and the challenges that we're all facing at this time. ICCA has a unique place as a truly global multi-sector association, combining destinations, venues, PCOs, hotels, airlines, importantly, that can call on the combined knowledge and extended reach of the finest professionals across many different industries. And we will use those connections as we move forward. This month, I read with interest an article by Martin Fullard, published by Conference News in the UK. And he made the point that our lives are a series of events, whether that means a government cabinet meeting, the World Economic Forum, a trade show or congress, a press launch to announce a new car, or simply an evening after work in a wine bar to thank partners and staff for a job well done. An event is the facilitation of real life experience, and they all matter. So that is why it is important that we now work together at a crucial time during the pandemic to go ever further to raise awareness across local and national governments of the power of our industry to drive the economic recovery that will come in the future. Many ICCA members operate across different sectors, congresses, incentives, live events, exhibitions, and it is all of these events that will drive the import and export activity of trade and knowledge that will help industry and society at large adapt to our new behaviours that will be necessary as a result of COVID-19. So as ICCA, we must remind all authorities that we manage and host world-leading organised events where our audiences are invited and known. Our events are not mass gatherings of unknown people, and it is vital that we cooperate with the authorities to adapt and put in place the right practices that will allow for the resumption of responsible meetings at the earliest practical opportunity. And for me, it is that adaptability to adapt to the changes in our everyday lives which makes our industry unlike any other. We need to recognise that there will be changes in attendee behaviours. There will be new rules and regulations to adopt, new technology to build into our events and our plans, and along the way, we may become somewhat frustrated. However, what I do know is that we will adopt and we will adapt and we will become used to the new ways of doing things. But by sharing what we do and the successes we have, ICCA members will be able to help shape these behaviours so that our industry recovers quickly. So it is and has been evident for some time that this year is not business as usual. And like all organisations, the ICCA board and staff are reviewing all of our activities and all areas of income and expenditure to make sure we maintain our services to members as best we can, but always with an eye to the future so that we can plan responsibly. The ICCA Board of Directors had an extensive meeting over this past weekend to discuss our 2019 financial performance, our CEO's reporting updates, and ICCA's plans for the remainder of 2020 and through to 2021. I'm pleased to say that through its sound commercial activity and with careful management of expenditure, ICCA remains in good financial shape and with a positive cash position in the bank. But that does not mean we should not be flexible in our approach to our plans, our services and our events, and our CEO will be giving us an update shortly on the great steps that have and will be taken to maintain our event programme during the course of this year and the great results that have already been achieved through innovative thinking and a willingness to try new concepts. And this spirit of innovation brings me on to a very, very important announcement and a question which has been asked by so many ICCA members in recent weeks. The question of how ICCA intends to host its annual Congress this year. As I reflected earlier, this is not a business as usual time for ICCA, for our members, or for the associations we serve. And we are seeing many of those associations having to take tough decisions and make alternative arrangements for their annual congresses. And ICCA is no different. For this reason, the ICCA board and its staff have been monitoring the situation in our host city, Kaohsiung in Chinese Taipei, on a constant basis this year, and liaising with the host committee and city stakeholders there. The situation in the country is actually very positive, and the authorities have been working extremely hard to contain the COVID-19 virus with a great deal of success and without the need for overly restrictive limitations on personal movement. As a result, our hosts are realistic but hopeful that by November this year, they will be able to welcome visitors to congresses and business events like the ICCA Annual Congress. And so, having evaluated all the available information, the ICCA board and its CEO and staff have agreed with our host in Kaohsiung to continue to plan our Congress over the scheduled dates of the 1st to the 4th of November this year. However, as this is not business as usual, we will be planning our first ever hybrid Congress. This will entail, to the extent that conditions and travel restrictions permit, a face-to-face Congress in Kaohsiung with an exciting program of education and facilitated debate about how we as ICCA members plan and set out this pathway to the new normal for our industry. To allow the maximum possible participation in the circumstances, we will link this main event virtually to other member gatherings across the globe over the same dateline to allow for the sharing of experiences and learning across our regions and our sectors, and then to use that assembled knowledge to help plan this future pathway. This decision to continue with the Congress was taken over the past weekend at the ICCA board meeting, and I do not have all the detailed answers to the questions you will probably have right now. However, we are, with immediate effect, beginning the planning to set out what would be a revised agenda and programme of events, and will be in a position to publish these with all details related to Congress fees, travel arrangements, health and safety measures, and all other appropriate details when we open registration at the end of June. The ICCA board recognises that these are challenging times. However, we also recognise that the ICCA Congress is the highlight event for many of us during our busy year, and we feel a duty, if at all possible, and acting responsibly, to ensure we are able to organise what would be a world first for ICCA, and as our first ever hybrid Congress, we create a real-time case study for us to use and demonstrate innovation and future thinking in organising an international association meeting. I have committed to both the board and our host in Kaohsiung that, if I'm permitted, I will guarantee to be there personally at the Congress in Kaohsiung. And I very much hope that we will be able to facilitate a gathering of as many of us of the ICCA family as possible, both in Kaohsiung and connected virtually across the globe. It is ICCA's fundamental role to demonstrate leadership in these times, and we should not be afraid to be bold, try the untested, and consider all options as we plan for the future. I, for one, am really excited at the prospect of a truly global, highly interconnected hybrid Congress in Kaohsiung, and I very much hope that we will have the opportunity to see each other there. Finally, and at times like these, I like to turn to the wisdom of others. And I wanted to end with a very short quote from the great Nelson Mandela. He said, "It always seems impossible until it's done."
Wow.
Thank you. And for now, let us continue to stand together while we are far apart. Thank you.
Wow, congratulations, James Rees. If you just joined, we've listened to the ICCA plenary address of our president. And I guess, James, the big announcement that there will be an ICCA Congress this year in modified form. And the team is very hard working on all the details, but there will be a gathering. And you're just personally committed to, if travel and conditions allow, you will also be there. So we really look forward to all of you joining who can, and others contributing to the virtual multi-hub event that you just proposed. And like you said, James, there's many practicalities still unknown. We see the Q&A filling with practical questions. And please all know that our events team is currently actively moderating that, taking and answering as many questions as they can written at the moment. And if they are using these questions to create this big frequently asked questions document on the website and all the information. So even if you're hesitating because you think your question might not be answered today, please submit it so at least we know all the questions that are amongst us in the community. Till this point, thank you very much, James, and we'll look forward to see you back at the end of this webinar briefly. Next up, we go to the second step of this exciting ICCA plenary session, because we're also joined by our ICCA CEO, Senthil Gopinath, who is going to announce the moment we've all been waiting for, the live launch of the ICCA Statistics for 2019, the rankings of all the reported meetings in countries and cities to learn where all the meetings are taking place, at least the meetings that are on the radar for ICCA, as you are all contributing to that body of knowledge. Good afternoon, Senthil. Glad you're with us.
Good afternoon, Karen.
Please enlighten us.
Thank you very much. It's great to see so many ICCA members joining. That's all truly about ICCA Global Family. We have almost over 700 members from all over the world joining. Like we said, this is all about, we are all about communicating, collaborating, and working together as one family. So thank you to all of you for being here. It's fantastic to see the positive energy, which we all need in these difficult times and challenging times. So that's great. Let me quickly run to the video. Herad, if you can have that video about our statistics. You saw the figures. Of course, last year has been a record year in terms of meetings. The ICCA team has been working tirelessly to gather these data. We did a highest ever association meetings figures, which is over 13,000. Of course, we have a challenging year this year. We all know that, but it's very important for us to talk about the positivity and say thank you to all of you for working hard to build this industry. And we all work together, and that's the kind of achievement. ICCA, we constantly still collect data, we constantly move forward. But I just want to make it a point, if you really see the growth of meetings over a period, it clearly proves that we are an industry which drives economy, which brings people together, and we are one of those most wanted industries in the world. So stay positive. I'm sure we'll all come out of this difficult situation, and we will come back in a much more strong and much more relevant industry to the global economy. Let me quickly ask Hera to put the other slide where to talk about the ICCA events. What we have been doing in the last 3 months. Our main focus has been primarily how do we engage our members? How do we keep our members communicating, the global family together? So what we did as ICCA, we didn't stop any of our activities as we went as planned. Yes, we couldn't meet face to face. So what we did, let's move virtually. It's fantastic to note the enormous amount of contribution and the joining of our members. Every activity we started as ICCA, our members have been fantastically supporting. That clearly gives a message to all of us that we all want to be part of the community, be it virtual, be it through webinar, be it to any other source, we want to be part of it. That's really encouraging, and I'm glad that me as ICCA CEO and James as ICCA President and the entire board was very glad to know that our members are very resilient and they want to be part of it. Let me just quickly show one of the next slides. Right? We can add that.
Yeah, the slides with all the events is on screen.
Absolutely, thank you. Just to give a glimpse of the amount of online events was planned by ICCA in the last 3 months. Majority have been executed, and we keep moving forward for the month of June, July, August. You could see across globally, we have been engaging actively with all our members, and we had huge number of member participation at every event again and again. And we continuously went into different sectors, different chapter meetings, different regions. Why? It's primarily to ensure our members are engaged and they're part of the community. And also to find or give the best practices, the thought process, what's happening globally to our members. Yes, we may not have answers, but the main important aspect is that we share knowledge, we share across Asia to Middle East, to Africa, to Europe, Latin America, to the US. We all want to know what our colleagues are doing. So a lot of professionals came on board in these webinars, shared their thoughts, and fantastic questions were asked and fantastic answers were given on what's the way forward. So that's the beauty of all these sessions, online events. And we'll continue to do this, and we keep moving. We also starting today the first AES Association Expert Seminar, virtual AES, and we had extraordinary number of members joining. We had over 60 members joining, over 40 associations. In fact, it's an oversold situation that clearly shows our members, again, require education. They want knowledge, so they want to be part of it. We launched AMP, Association Meetings Program again. It will be held in June, and again, a virtual platform. I keep seeing our members keep registering, want to be part of it. So that's very encouraging to showcase that our members continuously being part of it. So thank you very much for all that effort. And it's more of we doing as ICCA. We wanted you to be part of it. That's our main objective. We're also working as phase 2 research projects for ICCA to come forward with more intelligent research to look at what are the future best practices, how venues can open, how cities can open to work with the new normal. So we are coming out with those reports. The new research project is underway. We'll be publishing the reports very soon, which I'm sure will be very useful to all of you. I take this opportunity to thank our business partners who continuously support ICCA. Without your support, we won't be running all our online and all our activities. And also, of course, to our ARPs, your fantastic support. I keep hearing with all these partners, they are ready to support. I know all of you are in difficult times, but they are really ready to support ICCA. So a sincere thanks to all of you for that support. And of course, like James mentioned, for IMEX, Karina and Ray for creating this fantastic platform. I did a tweet this morning saying that the key insight of all this, what we are doing is bringing connections together. So they have created this platform to bring all our connections together. So thank you very much to them. My last message, as I said about 3 months back as well, when we in many webinars, let's communicate, let's keep collaborating, and let's share each other the best practices, support each other, and see success further. And I'm sure we all will come out of this in very soon, in the near future. Good luck, and wish you all the very best, and stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senthil Gopinath, ICCA CEO. Thank you for that update. Let me start with congratulating the top 3 destinations. I quickly wrote them down. The USA, most meetings as a country, Germany, second place, France, third place, and then Paris as the city with the most reported meetings, followed by Lisbon and Berlin. Congratulations if you're in those destinations. If that movie went a little bit quick for you, then make sure you check out ICCA's social media channels, because as we speak at this moment, that little animation video is shared through all ICCA's channels, and of course with the press release about the ICCA statistics. So if you want to pick that up, share it around. Another thing is, obviously, we are currently very intensely joined in this hour where everybody is joining live and participating in the chat and sending in questions. But as you know, most of us are somehow connected on social media as well. I bet anyone is available on LinkedIn. Many of us are on Instagram. Some of us are on Facebook. And you might have noticed them on my screen. These 2 little hashtags you should use. Because, for example, I see a question from Tadeja Pivic Kaudejer, I hope I say that well, and she's asking about recovery plans. What are the synergies you are noticing, and what are different approaches? And Tadeja, we're not going to take that question right now, but I invite you to actually share that with the hashtag recovery and resilience on your social media platforms, so other ICCA members can find that, share their experiences, so we can also keep this vibrant community going with sharing best knowledges and experience many to many through all the channels we have. Same is with the campaign we're launching today also. You saw it at the start of the webinar, why we miss face-to-face. Also, that video will soon come out of all social media channels, and the same invite. Let's create some momentum. Let's make sure that everybody understands that being in lockdown is important, is safe, but that we as an industry have the creativity and the need and the urge to find creative ways to come together again. And I think it's important that we keep sharing why we miss face-to-face and what that magic is beyond this technology way of connecting. That is obviously very easy, very good, and it allows us to proceed, but we want to move back to face-to-face, right? So hashtag why we miss face-to-face. And with that, I think there is a nice transition into this second part, or third part, but second half of our webinar here today. Because in order to come together again live, that world will probably look very different as what we have used to. We probably need to take a lot of precautions. We need to take extra measures. Although, as James Rees, our president, just mentioned, we are not in anonymous large gatherings. We actually know who we bring together. We know who is on site. So maybe that is an opening for us. Well, with no further ado, I'm very honored that today we are joined by Dr. Albis Gabrielli, who is a medical officer at the COVID-19 mass gathering cell of the World Health Organization, the WHO. And obviously, as we all know, all our countries and sometimes even our regions are in the end telling us what we can and cannot do, but the WHO is definitely working on protocols and recommendations on how that should be or could be best implemented. And with that, Dr. Gabrielli, we're very honored that you're with us today, and you have prepared a short update, a short presentation first on what we need to know about that, and then in the second half you will take as many questions from the audience as time allows. So we're looking forward to hear from you.
Thank you. I'm going to share the screen so that you can see the presentation. Right. Can you see that?
We see it. If you now push it into, yes, it's all working very well. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm going to give this short presentation, about 10, 11 slides, about COVID-19 from the point of view of mass gathering. That is the main focus, as you were saying, of the unit, the cell in which we work here at WHO in Geneva. So the first slide is actually a very quick summary of the current situation of COVID-19 as of this morning. And you see on the left side, basically the situation with the COVID-19 human cases now being reported from 215 countries, areas of territories. So basically almost every country in the world, for about 4 million cases and about 280,000 deaths. You see now at the bottom, for the graph, you can see basically the distribution of the new cases over the past few days, divided by geographical area of the world. In short, you can see that the number of new cases now is significantly decreasing in Europe. It's overall stable in the Middle East, while the Americas are actually now representing the highest proportion in terms of new cases, while other parts of the world, for example, Southeast Asia or Western Pacific regions, which for us is basically Australia and the Pacific, are accounting for a relatively small number of cases. The map in green, the top right corner, shows basically the density, if I may use this term, perhaps not correct, in terms of new cases. It's an incidence of new cases per million population. And in dark green, the darker the green, the highest is the incidence, so number of cases in proportion to the resident population by country. And so you can see the countries in darkest green are those with the highest number of new cases. And you can see them in the screen, for example, Saudi Arabia, Russia, in Europe, UK, Italy, and Spain, and in the Americas, the US, Peru, and Chile, for example. I now move to the following slide, which introduces the concept of transmission scenarios and bidirectionality, which means that WHO now envisages 4 transmission scenarios, from no reported cases to sporadic cases to cluster of cases to community transmission. Of course, there's a progression in terms of intensity of transmission and likely in number of cases as well, to the point that we move from a country up to a situation in which transmission occurs in the community, to the point that sometimes it's different to reconstruct the chain of transmission and therefore the contact tracing. The second point is that there's a bidirectionality in this, in the sense that, of course, in the beginning of the pandemic, we were seeing that the countries were moving from no reported cases to sporadic and then building up in terms of transmission. But now that the pandemic is going down in terms of new number of new cases in several countries all over the world, we see the opposite, so that the countries are gradually scaling down from community to cluster of cases and so on. So there's a bidirectionality. We need to be ready also to consider that the country that has been scaling down can move up again, and therefore we need to be ready to respond to this type of events. An important point is that the different transmission scenarios may not be applicable to the entire geographical situation of a country, but you may have, especially with regard to large countries, a situation that may be different within the same country. So we need to be ready to have all these type of different scenarios, different patterns within the country, and the possibility the country may move from one scenario to another and back. The second slide, the third one, shows now what kind of response has been put in place by countries in order to respond to the different scenarios. Different measures have been put in place. The most basic ones are the personal measures, so that affect the life of all of us as individuals. And WHO recommends 3 basic measures: the hand hygiene, the cough etiquette, also called respiratory etiquette, and the physical distancing of at least 1 meter based on WHO recommendation. Then you can see at the other top right of bottom left, the social measures that have been implemented. So at community level, at country level in some cases, what we call the lockdown. It's a term that WHO does not use, but it gives well the idea, showing that several measures have been taken in terms of reducing the number of events, including mass gatherings, and restricting travel, both nationally and internationally. And then you have the personal protective measure, for example, the wearing of the masks and gloves, with the recommendation that have been issued in that report, that countries are, of course, free to follow or not follow, and you see different countries implementing different types of these measures. Now, how do mass gatherings fit into this? The mass gatherings are events which are characterized by the concentration of people in a location over a set period of time. Now, mass gatherings have the potential to contribute to spreading COVID-19, and then also the potential to disrupt the health response capacity. Now, what is a mass gathering? Is of course subject to the context in which such mass gatherings takes place. So you might have, let's say, large-scale social music or religious events that clearly fall into the definition of mass gathering, but you may also have smaller events that, because of the setting in which they take place, may have the potential to disrupt the response capacity of the event organizers of the community in which the event takes place, or the country in which the event takes place. Now it's clear that with a situation like COVID-19, in which the infection can be transmitted from one person to another, the concept of mass gathering has to be adapted to the context, to the point that even smaller events may be considered as mass gatherings, because of course of the issue of the transmission from person to person that you may not easily have with other types of diseases. What is important is that the closeness, the frequency, and the duration of the interaction are the most frequent risk factors, more than the nature of the event per se. So it's not really the reason why you are interacting with a person or the context in which you are interacting, but rather the fact that you interact with a person at some distance, with some frequency, and with some duration. The issue of holding a mass gathering is a reflection of two main factors, let's say. First of all is the COVID-19 transmission status that we have seen in one of the previous slides, moves from no reported cases to sporadic cases to cluster of cases to community transmission. But ultimately, it's mainly a reflection of the public health and social measures that have been implemented by the host country in which the event is planned to take place. Because of course, we have an upper layer, that is the epidemiology of COVID-19 and the intensity of transmission. Then we have the measures that the country decides to implement in response to the transmission scenario. And under that, we have the mass gathering. So it may well be that the country decides that mass gatherings may not happen, should not happen in that country. And this is a decision we have to respect. What we know is that the public health and social measures, as a reflection of the evolving pattern in terms of transmission, are also evolving. And here in the slide, you can see what are the major events, the major factors that play a role in the decision-making process for a country to make public health and social measures stricter, or rather to decide to ease them and lift them eventually. So these are several considerations. For example, the capacity of the health system to identify and manage cases of COVID-19 and other diseases as well, because we have to think that the health system cannot be fully dedicated to the detection and management of COVID-19 cases. They also have to take care of all the other diseases that come up in the society. And of course, the health system needs to be able to respond to that. Then the resilience and level of acceptance of applied measures by the community, because we know that stricter measures are less well accepted, let's say, by the general community, and therefore we also need to take that into consideration. And the third point is that we need to also consider that severe public health, social, and restrictive measures have a significant impact on the economy, on the business, on the employment of many people, and therefore all these needs to be taken into account in order to produce to take the most sensible decision, and the one that is, let's say, best placed to respond to the different needs of the society as a whole. With regard to mass gatherings, we also need to say that very often, because of course, when we think of mass gathering, we think of football matches or music events are usually considered as recreational events. But we should think that they are not only recreational events. First of all, we can discuss whether recreational events have a role in the society, in the well-being of the society as a whole, which is also a non-negligible factor. But even if you want to focus on the recreational or non-recreational part of them, we also have to think that they have significant social and economic implications as well. And therefore, this, let's say, contributes to the third point, the government capacity to sustain social and economic support to the society. This is just a summary slide in which we have tried to, let's say, describe in a graphic way all what we have been saying so far. So you have the transmission scenarios evolving from left to right, from less intense to more intense transmission. And then you have on the left, you see that the less, let's say, the intensity of transmission is important. So the lower it is, the higher is the likelihood that the mass gathering event may proceed without modification, postponement, or cancellation. Of course, the more we have community transmission, the more we have intense transmission, the higher is the likelihood that strict and public health and social measures are implemented in the country, and therefore, as a consequence, mass gatherings may not be allowed to occur. What we suggest is that whatever the case in terms of transmission scenarios, mass gathering should be the subject, or let's say the object perhaps, of a dedicated risk assessment process, whereby the organizers and in close collaboration with the national public health authorities, or let's say the relevant public health authorities, could be local in some countries, conduct a thorough risk assessment in order to decide whether the mass gathering, in light of the restrictive measures that are implemented in the countries, may proceed or not. And if it may proceed, if it should be modified and adapted in order to mitigate the risk associated with it. So now we go into the deeper analysis of the mass gatherings and what would need to be done. So as I was saying just now, any decision to restrict, modify, postpone, cancel, or proceed with the mass gathering should be based on a risk assessment exercise. It should be as much as possible tailored to the event. So what is a risk assessment? In our view, the risk assessment is a process that takes into account two main factors. First factor is the risks, which are associated with the event in terms of amplification of risk of COVID-19 for the reasons I mentioned before, basically the close interaction among the participants in the events and all those who actually contribute to the event, which may be the employers or the workers or the drivers in case many people are moving to the event to public transportation and all these sort of considerations. So the risk on the one side, and on the other side, the capacity that the organizers or the public health authorities of the countries have to mitigate such risks. So it's a kind of balance between the risk on one side and the mitigation that you are able to put in place. WHO has developed tools with regard to that can help public health authorities in collaboration with the event organizers to assess such risks and suggest mitigation measures, and then test the capacity that the event organizers or the public health authorities have to implement such measures. And in the end, there's a numerical score for the event that corresponds to a recommendation, which says, yes, you may proceed or you may not proceed, or you may proceed, but you have to consider strengthening your mitigation measures in order to go ahead. I wanted to open a small parenthesis about the mitigation measures. Mitigation measures may apply to the event per se, in the sense that we recommend changes, amendments to the event, which may be related to the venue of the event, to the type of participants in the event, or to the duration of the events, and then to a whole sort of arrangements during the event. So they may be related to the event per se, or may be related to the context in which the event takes place. Basically, the capacity of the public health system, of the community, and the country in which the event takes place to respond to an event that may happen in conjunction with the event, before, during, and after the event. So now, what is the offer of guidance that WHO has in this regard? So WHO has produced risk assessment tools that include a generic COVID-19 risk assessment tool that provides overall guidance on any type of mass gathering that may happen, that is planned in conjunction with COVID-19 during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then we have two tailored tools, which are which respond to specific needs of those who are planning to organize sports events or religious events. These are available on WHO website and free for downloading and free for usage and adaptation as well. Why am I saying adaptation? Because WHO is in touch with a large number of constituencies that have decided to take these tools and adapt them to the special circumstances. For example, for specific sports sector or the specific type of religious event that is taking place. So the tool can be adapted by such non-WHO entities in order to respond to a specific need that can be tailored, that can be adapted, and then again, of course, can be used. These are not WHO publications, but they are based on the same principle, let's say risk assessment exercise that takes into account the risks and the capacity to mitigate such risks. And I think this is my last slide. I'd like just to know, because this is a question that very often comes up when we are requested an advice on any issue, but in our case, with regard to mass gathering, the WHO does not have the mandate to enforce any action with regard to mass gathering. So we cannot clear an event or we cannot stop an event. This is beyond the mandate of WHO. What we can do is that we develop guidance, and we regularly update that. And you will see, if you have a look at our website, that all the WHO guidance is actually published as interim guidance because the evidence evolves. And as you know, COVID-19 is the first time that we have, it's a new virus, it's a novel coronavirus. So it's the first time that we're confronted to this type of specific event. So it's not so easy to, let's say, of course we do, but it's not so automatic, let's say, the translation from past evidence into new one. So what we do is we develop and regularly update guidance. We make it available on the web for anyone who wants to use that, and we are always willing and happy to provide advice in that regard. I think that's my last slide. And okay, just to say here, this is with link and other things in terms of what we have in terms of guidance. I invite you just to visit the WHO website on the homepage, and you click on the coronavirus tab. And then you look for the guidance, and you can find all this guidance available for downloading. And of course, we are all very happy to provide any sort of clarifications or further advice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Albis Gabrielli. Well done. I hope you have a glass of water somewhere around you, because I hear your voice is drying up. But thank you for this update. If you just joined us, we've been listening to Dr. Albis Gabrielli, who is a medical officer at the WHO Cell for Mass Gatherings. And he updated us on how they think about that at this moment. As he says, it's interim guidelines. The link that he just shared on his slides is currently also posted in the chat, so you can click and save it right away, so you have access to all the tools and resources that Dr. Gabrielli was talking about. We're now going to take some questions from the audience, but the first one I would like to pose to you, Doctor, is that when you talk about mass gatherings, one of the things that James Rees, our president, also mentioned is we are in a specific kind of niche of mass gatherings, not sports, not recreational often, but many of us are involved in mass gatherings which have a very well-known audience. They're either business meetings or scientific association meetings. So we know our audience. We are often in venues where distancing is quite well possible. So I'm wondering, from a policy-making perspective, that what in fact the WHO is doing, do you see this as a designated or separate group of mass gatherings that might be allowed different recommendations?
Yeah, I think so. Let's say that we distinguish mass gathering in unplanned and planned, or spontaneous and planned. So you definitely fall into the planned category, which is of course, from a risk assessment point of view, let's say it's safer because it allows adequate times for discussing about the opportunity to implement mitigation measures and then implement them appropriately. So let's say you are on the safer side of the mass gatherings. With regard to policy, yes, I think so. I think it would be absolutely appropriate for all the constituencies working on events like yours, like conventions or congresses of this type of events, perhaps to gather together and try to adapt the WHO guidance to your specific context, trying to identify what are the specific risks and especially what are the mitigation measures that you can put in place. Of course, if the more you know, the ways this type of events take place, the more you can contribute to refining the policy and making the risk assessment tool more relevant, and therefore to have a better estimation of the risk, and consequently a better understanding of what measures need to be implemented.
Great. So basically what we can learn from you from this presentation and your being with us here today is that WHA has worked on this tool that then had the risk assessment and mitigation, and that results in a numerical score in order to have a more fact-based discussion, and we can say this is either a high risk or a low risk, or you should take extra measures.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, so that's very helpful. You shared the link where we can find that. Now, next up, we see obviously some members of our audience. There's always a lot of discussion about measures making sense, nonsense, is it worth it or not? So I'm going to take one of these questions and let's see if you can comment on that. Again, Tadeja Pivic-Koudijzer is saying, many countries are having quarantine periods if you travel. How effective is this in comparison to testing all the people who travel before they travel, right? Can you comment on that?
Okay, so this will go into different areas, and I think the quality of the advice I can give is probably not the best, and perhaps it'd be better to, because we have different areas of expertise. It's not really my expertise. What I can say is that in general, WHO recommends that all cases should be identified, and then those who are found to be too positive or have a suspicion of diagnosis should be isolated, and then the contacts of these people should be identified and then should be quarantined. So isolation and quarantine is two different things. Isolation is for people who have a confirmed diagnosis or a suspected diagnosis, therefore you are relatively sure that this person has symptoms, for example, so he should be isolated from others. Quarantine is more on a preemptive basis. So you have this person has had a contact with a person, and therefore you want to put this person, usually it's self-quarantine. We recommend that this person should be isolated for about 14 days in order to make sure that he does not develop any symptom and therefore does not represent the risk for other people. So both things, to come to the question, both things are there. The isolation is more for the person who have been diagnosed, and the quarantine is more for the people who have a suspicion. So both measures are recommended and should be implemented.
Exactly. But it might be a little bit too much to basically say, as a general rule, anyone who travels needs to be quarantined, right? There's more subtleness to it, if I understand you well.
Yeah, I mean, even now, I think the general rule should apply to everyone. So when I say, for example, in the first slide, the basic measure, they should apply to everyone, irrespective of where they are. We also see now that a lot of the travels are being. I mean, traveling is much more limited than before, and therefore we need to comply with the rules that the different countries are applying, or the different companies are applying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of questions, so I might just pose it again. I know we briefly touched it in the beginning, but both Sarah Fleming is talking about it, Patricia McColgan is sending in the same question. You've shared these protocols or these risk assessment tailored to both sports and religious events, and I guess this industry is screaming, how can we get on the table that we get a tailored risk assessment and mitigation measures for the industry of business meetings, industry events?
Yeah, so I think what I would suggest is that what has been done, what other constituencies have been doing, I think you should try to gather together all the associations that work on the same type of event at global level. Then we can share the tools with you, guide you through the process, and perhaps even suggest external experts who can guide you through the process of adaptation and validation of the tool. This will not be a WHO tool, as I mentioned in the beginning, but it doesn't need to be. In the end, you can just refer or quote WHO if you wish, and then you can implement the tool in collaboration with all relevant authorities, and then make a decision by yourself. As I mentioned in one of my last slides, we do not, as WHO, we do not clear events or we stop events. We just make guidance available and help provide guidance throughout the process, and then the decision in the end with those who have to take the decision, which could be the country that decides that events should not take place, or for example, if the country allows the event to take place, but you, from your point of view, you decide that the risk is too substantial for you to embark in such an event, and therefore you decide to postpone the meeting.
Yeah, exactly. But you can imagine that also for our industry, it kind of helps if there is a WHO approved stamp on it, right? So not so much on the event, but on the developed risk assessment and mitigation strategy. And basically, we can conclude you are involved in that. You're not developing it yourself, but if we gather as an industry with all constituencies...
we will not be able to, this is a question that comes very often. We will not be able to clear the document as such, because WHO only clears WHO documents. So does not clear documents that are published by third parties. So this is something that has to be clear. But we guide you through the process, and in the end, we can check for consistency with WHO recommendation in that regard, and we flag out the possible inconsistencies, and then it's up to you to decide whether you want to accept them or not. As I mentioned, WHO proposes a recommendation based on best evidence that may, of course, evolve over time. So something that is good today may not be good tomorrow. Proposes, and then it's up to the countries, member states, as we call them, who have the sovereign decision to decide whether they want to accept them or not, or they want to adopt them, and so on. And the same can apply for events organized in this specific context.
Clear. Thank you very much for explaining that so well. And I think we all as an audience now have to come together, go to all our industry association, the Global Meetings Industry Council perhaps, to take the lead and guide us together with WHO to get this on the table. So that's an important message of this day today, and how suitable in this week of IMEX Frankfurt and PlanetIMEX.
I wanted to make a brief comment. So the key issue is that, of course, we can provide the expertise with regard to mass gathering, but the expertise on the congresses and convention side will have to be made available by your side, because of course you know this area much better than
exactly. But that is exactly the frustration that many of us feel, that our policymakers make no distinction, right? Big sporting events, business events, it's all the same, it's all locked down, and we are like, oh, we have potential. So thank you for well, I guess challenging and inviting us so directly to start working on this. We will do that very soon. And I see on my clock that we're already 2 minutes to 4 o'clock. So with that, I would like to round up the Q&A with you. Thank you very much, Dr. Albis Gabrielli. Thank you for your time and your thorough preparation for this short presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I'd like to briefly switch back to our ICCA main players that we started this meeting with. We have with us ICCA's CEO, Senthil Gopinath, and also ICCA's president, James Rees. And I'd like to give them the floor for a first, perhaps short reflection, but mainly also for the closing words. So, James, if I may start with you, what is your first reflection when you listen to this?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Gabrielli for joining us today. It is it's fantastic to have the WHO working with us and advising with us. My first reflection is, to an extent, the challenge he's set ICCA now. We need to do the research and pull together the relevant information from across our global regions, and then I think revert to the WHO to seek support on this modelling. It's fantastic that some of that work has already been done for other styles of events. We need to make sure we're part of that now, and I think I'll be challenging Senthil to get a move on and bring us all together to make that happen. So, but it was a great opportunity to listen to someone of that expertise.
Well, thank you for being with us as well, James. Senthil Gopinath, your closing words, perhaps?
Yeah, just to add on to what James said, the part of the research project, which I mentioned as phase 2, we've already started working on that. That's in progress. And yes, definitely ICCA has been one of the key associations working very closely with WHO. So that's why we wanted WHO part of our plenary as well, to educate and create awareness among our members. So we will be definitely working together on that research report together with WHO, getting their guidance, and will be out soon to our members so that our members can use and restart our industry sooner. Yeah, so thank you very much for everybody joining. It is a great day, and I'm sure it's so glad to see that it's more like having the actual plenary. We all are in Frankfurt to see overwhelming support, participation. So I'm really glad that all our members could be here today. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Senthil, and thank you for being with us. Now, before I tell you all where you can find the recordings of this webinar, if you want to share it with anyone who missed it or might have come in late, let me first make 3 very clear follow-up actions that you can do. The first one is related to all the hashtags that you see around and the social media sharing. 3 things to remember. Please share how you are working through your innovation, your creativity on recovery and resilience of this industry with the hashtag recovery and resilience. Use hashtag ICCA World if you want to make sure that the ICCA community sees that. Secondly, the second campaign launched today, and we'll play that nice little video with the wonderful images of all the ICCA congresses from the last recent years, is the hashtag Why We Miss Face-to-Face campaign. Make people aware that this is not the new normal that we envision, that we should find ways to come face-to-face again, and share your story with hashtag Why We Miss Face-to-Face. So we create that momentum in everybody's minds, like indeed, we should embark on a journey backwards. Then second point is the AMP program. It's coming up soon, end of May, early June. Make sure you register. It's a 2-day program where we on the first day look back at the challenges that we face today, and the second day focus all on how we can come out of this and what is our way back to a normal, new normal, back normal, old normal, we don't know, but the new meetings industry as we need to create it with all of us together. And thirdly, let me just underline, as you may have missed the opening speech by James Rees, this weekend, hot from the press, it was announced that there will be an ICCA Congress in Kaohsiung this year, November, and it will be both a physical gathering and an online multi-hub event. Lots of details to be worked out. Registration will probably open end of June, and in the meantime, the ICCA events team will work really hard to figure out all the details and give you all that information. With that, I see I have run 2 minutes over time. Glad you're all with us. I don't know if you're still with us in the chat. Let us know how you found this experience. Our panelists, Senthil, Gopinath, James Rees, and also Dr. Albis Gabrielli will probably read that out or will bring it to him. Give us a big virtual clap either in the chat or in social media. And we look forward to welcome you at one of our future online or face-to-face ICCA events.